Hello and welcome to an Everyday Canines video. In this episode we're looking at verbal cues and what I've been doing with Magpie to help her begin understanding verbal cues. What do I mean by verbal cues, or verbals for shorthand? It's when you ask your dog to do something just on a word. So with my girls, if I said tunnel, I would expect them to run out and get the tunnel without me having to move my arm or to run in the direction. It's very helpful for things such as agility distance handling, which I'm starting to do a lot of. Courses are getting bigger and bigger, and the majority of handlers, even top level handlers who can run, are finding a huge value in having verbal cues so that they can tell their dog to do something while they get somewhere else and they haven't got to rely on their body language. In obedience, it's quite common as well. You're going to use it when you're doing heel work, sendaways, things like that you use cues for. You might also use an arm as well to gesture. Can you get that? But the verbals are going to be the fundamental part of it. The other thing is when we're doing something, and certainly which I found very useful with Swift, when you're doing things like a stopped contact. Now I have running contacts except on my seesaw. On my seesaw I have a stopped, and ultimately it probably will become a semi-stopped, in the sense that I want my dog to go up, ride the seesaw in a position that's safe as it goes down, so they are actually stopped, and then carry on without me having to release it. I started using this with Swift because she lacked so much confidence on a seesaw. I've always done running seesaws, but she lacked so much confidence with the seesaw that I realised I need to do something else. So by teaching her that aspect of running up, laying down, riding the seesaw down, it was safer for her, and it gave her the confidence to do the seesaw. So doing games like this is another way of building up that consistency for things like stop contacts, distance work. It's also teaching your dog to listen to the word rather than where your body's going. And now if you're a distance handler, that's going to be quite important, because there could be times when your body is going a different way to where you want your dogs to go. So you might have to do a turn while your dog is sending out to the weave poles, and you want them to do the weave poles while you're getting somewhere else. You don't want them following your body language over your verbal cue of weaves. So I'm going to just show you some of the fundamentals I've been doing with Magpie and how we've been building these up. So I've just been working with sit and down, two very basic fundamental cues. They're useful to have with our dogs in general. And I started this the way I started with all my dogs, doing sits and downs, and I did it with Alert. So when I started and I wanted her to sit, obviously she's very good now, I just put the treat on her nose and got her to sit. Very rapidly I took the treat out of my hand and just did it on a hand signal, so it looked like there was a treat in my hand, but actually there wasn't, and then I rewarded from my spare hand. Literally probably the first or second session I did that, because I didn't want her to get fixated on the treat. Good girl, sit. And then what I started to do is you add the word in, sit, good girl. But then what I started to do is I said the word sit before I gave my hand signal. Now, by giving my verbal before my hand signal, I was changing what the cue was for her. So I was putting that word in, I was saying sit, and I was waiting to see if she would perform the sit on that cue instead of using the hand signal alone. Now this is going to take time because your dog is used to using the cue on the hand. So what happens is initially I'd say sit and cue with the hand, then I'd go sit and just a pause, very slight pause. Don't dig, my love. And then the hand signal. And then you get more and more. And over the course of a session, I probably would vary it. Sometimes I'd do the hand signal very quick on the sit, and sometimes I'd take a little bit longer. And eventually you get to this, sit. Good girl. So you see, no hand signal at all. Good girl. Now, you say, could you use a clicker for this? Absolutely you could. The problem with the clicker, sit, is I want her to remain in a sit on a single cue. Good girl. And with a clicker tends to say, that was great, finish the behaviour. So if I now clicked her, she probably would jump out of the sit to get her reward, which would be a fair thing for her to do, because that is really what a clicker teaches them. But I want her to understand that she doesn't leave the sit, good girl, until I ask her to. And we're still working on that, because you can see she got up out of the sit because I'm talking to you. Break. But ultimately what I want her to do is I want her to go in a sit, and stay there until I say break. So I had the sit looking rather nice, and you'll notice that when she's sitting I don't always reward instantly. I build it up. Sometimes it's a couple of seconds, sometimes it's more, because we're all building up that foundation behaviour that you go into a sit and you stay there until I say something else. As I say, that's still a work in progress. Now the next cue I did was down, and again I taught it in the very traditional way. Lured him into the down with the hand on the ground. Good girl. So lured down like that. Actually, I can't do it now. I can't do it now, mother. But lured him down, rewarded, did that a few times. Then I obviously did the same. I started to switch sit, down. I started to switch to a verbal cue. Still using the hand to lower and a finger to the ground. I would say the down took longer than the sit, probably because the sit gets more reinforcement. If you think about it, during the course of the day, your dog will sit a lot, like this, for a treat, for their food, just sitting next to you. So it's a little bit more of a easy one to reinforce because it happens all the time. And you see, while she's sitting there, she's doing a nice sit, I'm going to just keep rewarding her because I want that. And I want her to understand that, yeah, you're doing a nice control position. So yeah, keep doing that. And then sometimes I might say to her, break, to understand that I've asked her to leave that position. Right, sit. So yeah, so the down took a little bit longer, and I wanted it not just from a sit. So if we go from a sit, down, oh, down, good girl. Now you can see that she's a little bit more reinforced on the sit, so she went back to the sit. So that was a little thing we've had to work on, good girl. And we're still working on it. I'm not expecting, she is only 5 months, there's a lot to do. But I didn't just want the down from a sit, I wanted it from a stand as well. So if I get you up, okay, ready? Down. Nearly, break, okay, ready? Down. Oh, so close. Down. Yeah, good girl. Now bear in mind, she's in a new place doing these things. It's wet, that's why we're under a tent. So, it's not as good as when we're at home. If you've looked at some of my videos on my Facebook page, you'll see how good she can be when she's in a place where there's less distractions. So there's a very distracting environment for her. I'm asking a lot, but in a place where there's not a lot of distractions, it's good. And so when you're training this, yes, you would start in your house where it's quiet, there's not a lot else going on, and that's how you start and build up. Okay, so now she's doing those nice things, doing nice sits and downs. I want to move it on a bit, and I want to do it with a little bit more motion so that she'll still do the action when I'm moving. So I started with the sit because the sit is her stronger position, and I did this, right pie. So I walked, and then I asked for a sit. Sit. She said down that side. Ready? Sit. And she can't do it because we're in a distracting environment. That is fine. It's a good example. This is probably what will happen the first time, so I'm going to go a bit slower. Sit. Go on, baby, hey? Sit. Yay, good girl. So it's a bit distracting. She couldn't quite do it. Break. We've always got to bear in mind, we've got a lot to learn. Okay, sit. Sit. Yeah. So initially when I was walking, and she's showing you that good perfectly, I had to walk, ask for the sit, and just slow a little bit to help her get it. Okay, sit. Yes, good girl. But what I actually want, ultimately, is I want to be able to keep walking. Technically, I want to be able to keep running. We're not up to that stage yet. Okay, ready? Right. Sit. Hey, good girl! Well done. Ow, that was my face. Yeah, I love you, but that was too much. So you see, she sat, I was still moving forward. She did get up immediately, which I didn't really want. I wanted to stay in that sit, but we are in a different place, so I'm going to reward the fact she got in the sit. She can do the down as well, but obviously the down out here, I'm not expecting it. Let's try one more with a sit. Okay, sit. Awesome. Nice. Break. Good girl. Get it? So you can see I was still moving off. What I'm teaching her is that her verbal overrides the motion. So the word is got to be more important to her than what my body is doing. That could be, for instance, I said stop contacts is an obvious one. It could also be your start line. You're setting them up on a start line, you ask them to sit, you want to move off. If your dog is constantly triggered by your movements, then they're not going to have a good start line because they just won't. They'll just move the second you move. Now this is very early levels with Magpie, and these are something that you've got to be patient with, and they do take time. So you can see the early level, and you know, it's not quite perfect there. We have good sessions, we have sessions where a bit iffy, but I'm really pleased with what she's done in a brand new environment. And I can show you what it looks like when you get to a higher level with a dog. So I'll show you what it looks like with Swift. So as I said to you, I was using this, especially with the down, to help with Swift's seesaw behaviour. So let's see what we'll do. Okay, I'll just warm you up a little bit. Okay, ready. Sit. Good girl. Break. Down. Good girl. Good girl. Break. Let's see if we can get that a bit faster without me running out the arena. Down. Good girl. Good girl. Break. Ready. Sit. Oh, now that was a trick. I hadn't ever done it in a circle before, so I couldn't do that. Okay. Sit. Good girl. So you see, break. Limited space, so I'm having to confine what I'm doing, but I got to the stage with Swift where I can run past, say down, and she will lay down. Now think about that on your seesaw. They're running up the seesaw, good girl, and I want her to lay down at the end and ride the seesaw to the base. I don't want her going and leaping off or missing the end. So I'm running, she runs up the seesaw, and I use the word bang because that means going down and stay there on the end of the seesaw. Slightly different because it's not a down on a flat. Bang, she lays down, rides down the seesaw, holds the position till I release her, and I can carry on running to be wherever I want to be next. Exactly the same with any stopped contact. It's what you want. You want to ask your dog to stop and you carry on to wherever you need to be and then release them, right? This is where it all begins. Just working with 2 words, sitting down in the house, building up that value for it and getting them to do this. And you're a good girl. And I expect Magpie to get to the same stage as Swift. And the other thing you saw is once she was in that position, she didn't move. Even when she was in the sit and I moved back past her, she held the position until I released her. Very good girl, very good girl. So that's what you want ultimately with your verbals. But as you can see, it takes time and you can't expect that instantly with a puppy. It's going to take quite a lot of patient training, lots of training sessions. This is something I would do every single day, very short, maybe a minute or 2. You could do stuff like, if you're making their food, ask for the sit before you put the food bowl down, things like that. It's all going to help. But yeah, be patient with it, enjoy it, and when you move on to doing agility, you'll already have a foundation for start lines, for contacts, and for any other verbals you're going to need. I hope you've enjoyed this Everyday Canines video, and if you have, maybe you'd like to subscribe to the YouTube channel and click on notifications so you know when the next videos are coming out. And you can also check us out on Facebook and Instagram. And I hope to see you all again very, very soon.